welcome. My name is Angela Thompson, and I appreciate you joining me. Today I'd like to share a project with you on behalf of tinypandora.com. Let's begin. Hi peeps, it's Angela with Polymer Clay Peeps, and today I want to show you how I made these cute little Santa gnome ornaments. You can make them in any size you want. If you wanted to reduce these down to a smaller size to use them for jewelry or earrings, you could certainly do that. These are between 5 and 7 inches long, and that's including the little curl of the cap here. So you can just vary it and do it any size you want to. I'm getting the shape of the hat by using, these templates, which are from the Beads and Blends kit at tinypandora.com. Today I'm going to use the larger of the three. This one has a base of about 1.5 inches. I'm not going to use it all the way at the base though. I'm going to use it a little higher up because I want my ornament to be about 1 inch wide. So the first thing that you're going to need is a silk screen or type of veneer, and then another strip of clay on your thickest setting to make the backing for the ornament hat. Both of these are roughly 2 inches by 6 inches long. Again, you could lengthen it or shorten it based upon what you're doing. The silk screen that I'm using today is called Sweater Print, and it is from ohhh.creations.com. Typically any silk screen, the size that I like to make these isn't quite wide enough, so I always just kind of tilt them corner to corner, and that's what I've done with this one. That way I get a lot of the pattern in the size strip that I'd like to use it in. So I want to take a look here, and whenever you're making your ornament, you can decide which way you want to position it. I just want to see which way is going to work the best. The side closest down to this end, you're going to cover that anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. If you have a spot like this where it's lifting or something, you could certainly use that anyway. I think that I like the way it looks about right there. Because I've had these Lucilite templates before stick to the acrylic paint, I'm just taking a mental snapshot of the way that I want this to be. And then I'm going to lay my veneer. I'm going to lay my veneer on top of my piece of clay, and I'm going to stretch it a little bit and just make sure that I'm gently forcing the air out. I don't want to trap any air pockets in there, but I don't want to put a lot of pressure on rubbing it because that could affect the paint. It could cause it to pop off. All right, so now that I have an idea of where I want that to go, I'm going to flip it over. And then I'm just going to position it how I recall it being, and I think about like that would be great. And you'll see that you can get more than one off of this section that is, again, 2 by 6 inches long. And I messed that up a little bit, sorry. I'm just gonna cut that away, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just cutting all the way through. I do use a veneer so I can peel it away, and I'm not overcommitted if I have a lot of scrap. And it just cuts down a little bit on the waist. If I decide not to make another cap out of that piece, I'll just cut it. And I can see where I lifted the blade up a little bit right there. So I'm just going to slim along the edge there, nip that off. And then that is going to be adorable. So I'm going to peel it off of my Lucilite. And then I'm going to, let's see, get this out of the way. And then this is my cutout. I'm just going to work it on the paper here so it doesn't stick to the glass, and again lifting that paint. All right, so now I'm going to roll a texture along the back of the ornament. This is quick and easy. This is just a roller bar. And you can get these at wish.com. Also, Mary Joy Coleman at Oh Joy Creations has started making rollers in her store. I have one ordered, but it hasn't arrived yet, but I'm definitely going to test it, and I'll let you know what I think. So I just want it to be a little less bland, you know, just, it's pretty, but it could use a little bump. So I'm just going to rub some reflections powder on top of this, just to give it a little accent. And this is Chrissy Friesen Surface Effects Reflection. It's one of my favorites of her product line. I just love it. All right, so there's that. If you wanted to put a maker's mark into your ornament, now would be a great time to do that. This is just a little imprint stamp with my initials. You can do this, you can use a cane to mark your work, or however you want to do it. I just find that little impression stamp is pretty quick and painless. I am going to decide how I want the shape of this to be. I'm going to cut it about right there. I'll set that to the side, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the cap, and I'm going to start working this between my fingers to elongate it a little bit. And this also warms the clay up and gets it moving again, so it doesn't break when you make your bend in the cap. So once you have it loose, you're just going to kind of fold it over just like that on itself. I'm still putting a little bit of pressure to pinch this together just because I want to baby it and make sure it doesn't crack. And then I'm just going to start a gentle twist into my cap. And then I'm just going to curve it off to one side, or whatever you want to do to it. Sometimes I just like to have a little fun with them. So this one I think we'll make a little jaunty and put it to the side like that. And that's the first stage. So I'm going to put him in the oven, and I'm going to bake the hat for 30 minutes, and then we'll continue. The base is fully cured now, and we're ready to move on. For this next part, we are going to need a few things. We're going to need our texture tool again, a couple of tools to work with. I like a rubber tip tool and then a little ballpoint tool. You will need a toothbrush or something to texture the rim of the hat and the little ball on the end. I'm going to use the Christie's Surface Effects Reflections again to texture the back of the head once we get that on. We'll need some Bank and Bond liquid clay. I'm going to just use the translucent here. And then for clay, we are going to need some small amounts. We'll need a marble size ball of white clay, a smaller ball of white clay. And when I say white, this is my white and pearl mix. That's 50-50. A tiny little ball of pink, a pre-baked or molded embellishment. This is a liquid clay snowflake embellishment that I made earlier with a mold. It is liquid clay that is 50% white and 50% pearl, so it's a really close match for the liquid clay to the solid clay. And then you're going to need to have extruded the hair that you're going to use to make the beard. This is the smallest circle disc that I have, and I just extruded, again, this is the white and pearl mix, and I cut off some sections just to have it in a length that's easier to work with. This doesn't necessarily mean that my beard will be this long. I usually play that by ear, but it's nice to have a longer length than you need. That way you have all the options. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I am going to work on this paper just because it's easier for me to turn it and look at it from different angles. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little ball of liquid or white and pearl mix. This is the larger of the two balls. And I'm just going to squish it. It's not real technical on this. I'm just flattening it and forming it into a kind of an oval shape. And then I'm going to flatten one end of it because I'm making it just to go along here. So now I'm going to apply some liquid clay. I'm doing this because this clay is baked and we want a good seal. So we're going to use something to help the raw clay adhere to the baked clay. And then I'm just going to lay it down on my work surface, and I'm really just squishing it. I want to pull the white clay over the base of the red clay. It doesn't have to be completely embedded in it, but you want it to be embedded enough in the top of it that it actually helps hold itself on while you're working through the rest of this process. And it doesn't have to be neat or perfect, but the neater you make things as you go along, the less cleanup you will have to do, and the neater your end product will be. You could take a quick approach and just knowing that I'm going to put the Santa brim over this hat area. For the hat, you could just kind of put it all on there haphazardly if you wanted to, because you are going to cover it up. You just have to make that determination for yourself on how you want to do it. So as you can see, I've pushed it into the clay. It's not real scientific. It's not real neat at this point. This is all going to be covered, and that is something that we just have to get out of there because it is a pet hair. I have 2 dogs, and they are not at all stingy with shedding on all over everything for me. So now I'm going to just take my texture tool and I'm just going to roll it. I just want to give this the cohesiveness of being one piece, and continuing the pattern will help with that. I'm shaping the head just a little bit more. Okay, I think that's a good size. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these extruded lengths of hair, and I'm just going to start working them in little clumps of 3 or 4 or 5, whatever feels natural when I pick it up. And I'm just going to start from the side, and I'm just going to kind of tack it on there. And I am working more on the clay that's down than I am on the backing here. It might look like I'm on that backing, but if I am, I'm going to cut that off. I'm not going to leave it there because it's not going to adhere very well. There's no liquid clay under there to bond it. It might not be essential with the brim of the cap going across it, but old habits die hard, right? And I think that I need to have that between there, so it's going to bother me if I don't, so I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to continue building the hair up. I am just laying it down right now, tacking it, and then seeing how it lays and making adjustments as needed to. I don't want it to get too clumpy, but I do want it to all be pretty thick, just because I think that looks better. And if it's thick, it allows me to push it up and get some movement going in the beard that way, without it worrying about exposing gaps through it. The base is the same color, and people would have to, look really close to even make that determination. But if you can keep it neat as you go along, keep it neat. And that got really clumpy, so I'm going to just set that to the side. you're not wasting any of this clay. You just, you know, you haven't done anything except extrude it, so it's perfectly fine to put it back into your pile. I'm just going to keep laying these on there. When I get one that does that, I just kind of pull it off and set it to the side instead of trying to re-adhere it, just because I don't like single placing them. I like them to go in clumps. Because these are such thin little snakes of clay, you're not using a lot of clay here, and it doesn't take a lot to make a beard that looks nice and full. Just turn it from different angles, and then like that had a little gap there, so I wanted to adjust that. Again, don't worry about the top. We're not leaving that like that. This is just work in progress. All right, so when I think I've got a good volume of hair on there, I'm just going to kind of pinch it together just a little bit so it trims down. You could trim it off straight if you want it, just for this particular look. I didn't want it quite that blunt, so I wanted to just put a tip on it like that, and then I'm going to hold it here and I'm going to push it up, and that just gives it a little more wave, a little more movement. I think it just adds to it. And then I want to take and find out where I'm going to put the nose, and I want the nose to be a little high so it sets under the brim of the hat, and I'm just going to open it up. And yeah, I think that's going to be a good area for the nose. So then I will open it up further because the nose is a little bulbous. It's a little bulb. It needs to have a good area to clear to into. So here's my little pink. I'm just going to roll it into a ball, and then I'm going to drop it down into that little valley that I just opened up. And it's okay. Yep, just drop it down in there, and then using your little tool, move these hairs around and reposition them so they don't leave a gap. They're above or under your nose rather. And then if you find that you have a little bit of area that's not quite working, you can just take and add another little little section, and then just tap it along down until you have a nice full looking beard. And I think that looks really good. Let's move it a little bit here over to cover that side. That's not critical or necessary. I just wanted it to look a little more finished right there. And then you can always, again, press up on the bottom of it to give that little movement and lift and wave to your beard. All right, so now I have the beard, and I think that that's fine. So now I'm going to angle my blade and just shave this here off. And I'm going to shave it off a little bit closer. There we go. And I'm just removing some of that bulk of that hair since we are going to put that brim on that hat. We don't want it to bulge too much. You know, I don't want it obvious that there's something up under there, even though there's the head. And then I'm just going to flatten that down a little bit. And then I'm just going to trim it a little bit more. One thing that you do want to do is be careful you're not lifting the paint off of your piece that you're working above. And so I'm just neatening it up a little bit. I know that it's all going to go across the back too. Okay. Now I'm going to take the long strip and I want to texture it, smooshing down a little bit further on these edges. You could do this as you go, or you could do it in advance. Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a little encouragement in advance. You can adjust this strip and make it wider if you need to, make it thinner, whatever look you want, you just do it. I did notice something as I was turning him, that it's got a little bit less hair right through here than what I would like. So see how I'm just lifting those, and you just kind of add them and they just look like they worked, like they were there all the time. You just have to have that little wave or movement if you like. Cut that off. Now I'm going to come around the edge here with some liquid clay. It doesn't need to be a lot or thick. Around to the back. And that's going to be way longer than what we need. I'm just going to trim off a section of that. That's still really long, but wrap it around. Trim that there. Smush it together just to heal that seam. Retexture it. Retexture anything that you need to on the bottom. Be careful not to texture the nose. Okay, that's looking really good. So now I'm going to take the little ball and I'm just going to bounce it around in my palm until it's textured. And then just going to stick it like that. And just a drop. The tiniest little amount. And then back on the end it goes. And if you have it pushing out, you just wipe it away. And then if you have any spots that you need to retexture, okay, now I want to put my snowflake on, and I think that I want to put it right here. This is a really big snowflake, but I'm going to use a little liquid clay behind it, and I'm actually going to put a little tiny ball of clay behind it to act as a base. The only thing left to do is flip it over. Retexture anything else there. I pressed down pretty hard when I was putting the snowflake on, so I just want to fix it. And just for consistency's sake, I want to